What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for Week 8 upset alert, and last week was a pretty big week for upsets. It's funny, during the video last week, I didn't really expect a whole lot to happen in terms of upsets, but we ended up with several upsets, and actually 4 of the 8 games I listed last week, 4 of them turned out to be upsets. So just going back to last week real quick, run through those upsets. We saw Iowa upset Wisconsin. How about Iowa going on the road and upsetting Wisconsin? And how about Pittsburgh upsetting Louisville? Yes, I did have that on the video last week. Also, Arizona upsetting Washington State. And then finally, Colorado State over Boise State. Of course, Colorado State coming from behind. Crazy finish there. And we had Arkansas, Alabama on there last week. You know, I talked about I felt like that had an opportunity to be a closer game than the spread indicated. And we saw just that. Arkansas hung in there. So let's look ahead now to Week 8. And again, we're picking the 8 games. We're looking for the big upsets, the biggest upsets that could potentially happen. Taking the 8 games that we think are most likely to be upsets where the spread is 4 points or more. And normally, if you go through the history of this series, normally 2 of the 8 games turn out to be upsets. So finding those 2 games is always the challenge. And again, 4 of them, though, last week, 4 of the 8 games turned out to be upsets. I think the most we've had is 5. I think 5 of the 8 games have been upsets. That was last year. This year has been kind of quiet. It's been right there on the average, around 2. Last week actually might have been the most upsets, at least in terms of games that we had on the video. So let's get into it here. And we're going to go from the least likely to most likely, starting with Rutgers, Indiana. This one is interesting. 12 o'clock Eastern time. Big Ten Network. Rutgers favored by 4.5 points on the road. And again, it's a road game. It's a Big Ten game. Indiana has really, at times, looked pretty good. At times, looked pretty awful. And Rutgers has kind of been the same way. Overall, Rutgers has been much more consistent than Indiana. But it's just one of those games where Indiana really desperate for a win. You figure they'll come out and play well in this game. And just from a talent standpoint, it's not really a huge mismatch here. So maybe playing at home, Indiana pulls off a big upset. Ole Miss, Auburn, 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Ole Miss favored by 6.5. If you watched Auburn last week against LSU, you'd probably say there's no way that they're winning this game. But remember what they did to Georgia when they played them at home. Had the lead in the second half of that game. This series has had some really good games in the past, and I expect a pretty good game here this week. And that's why I think the spread's only 6.5. And again, just Auburn playing at home. You expect them to play well, especially on defense. They're going to have to against a really high-powered, explosive offense in Ole Miss. You just wonder about Auburn, though. Are they going to be able to score in this game and score enough? I think they're going to have to run the football to have a chance. But potentially an upset there. Auburn may be taking down the 13th ranked Ole Miss Rebels. Next, we've got Northwestern, Nebraska, 3:30 Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. Nebraska favored by 11. That's a really big number in my opinion. Northwestern has been better than I think a lot of people expected with all that they've been through. They haven't been terrible. Nebraska hasn't been great. They've been, very okay. Both teams were 3-3 coming into this game. I know home field advantage will be big here for Nebraska, but they've got a lot of injuries as well. I mean, they are really banged up. They've lost a lot of skill position players, and just all over, just injuries for Nebraska, I think is really keeping them from being as good as maybe I thought they would be this year. Still a great chance to get to a bowl game, though. I mean, I think I had them at 6-6, so still everything's right there in front of them. But Northwestern's played them tough in the past. They beat them, I think at least the last 2 years. So yeah, this is one to watch out for. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw an upset in this one. If it was at Northwestern, I'd feel a little bit better. Of course, Nebraska is a tough place to play, but perhaps an upset. We'll see. Next, we go to Mississippi State at Arkansas, noon Eastern time on ESPN. Arkansas is favored by 6. I feel like Arkansas will play really well in this game. I think they're going to come out, desperate, backs against the wall. And I'm just, for my predictions, and I don't think I had this on my prediction video for tomorrow, so I'll go ahead and tell you. I think Arkansas is going to win this game. I think they're going to play well. But there are some elements here. At 2-5, do they just give up? Is it just over for Arkansas? They gave it their best shot against Alabama, came up short, and the season's over. They could possibly look at it like that. Whereas Mississippi State, they're just 3-3, still a chance to get to a bowl game if they finish strong. So you worry about the mentality for Arkansas, and also how many times have you heard Alabama beating teams twice? Because teams, a lot of times after they play Alabama, will lose the next week. It's just such an emotional physical game against Alabama. And so there is that side of it. I personally, again, I think Arkansas is going to be ready, but there are some elements there that make me think that they at least need to be on upset alert here against a Mississippi State team, a veteran team. It hasn't been great this year, but again, with a lot to play for still, maybe they pull off the upset. Next, we go to Utah, USC, 8 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. USC's favored by 7. USC's defense has been pretty bad this year. Their offense has had trouble protecting Caleb Williams, and that's really, I think Utah exposed them last year. You go back to the 2 games last year. If you get pressure on Caleb Williams, that's how you beat USC, and Utah was able to do it. And I think their defense will be ready to go again this time. You wonder, without Cam Rising, though, can Utah score? You know, they're not going to completely shut USC down, so they're going to have to score some points, and that's going to be the challenge here. But again, USC has not looked great this year, and Utah, they know how to slow down this USC offense. If they can get enough from their offense, perhaps they could pull off an upset here. Tennessee, Alabama, 3:30 Eastern time on CBS. Alabama favored by 8.5 points. I think this will be a good game. Tennessee, which Tennessee will we see? Against Florida, this team was not very good last week against Texas A&M. Their defense played really well. Offense has been kind of, you wonder about the passing game with Joe Milton there. Can they do enough through the air against this Alabama defense? I think Tennessee's defense, though, has really improved, and I think this is probably going to be a lower scoring game. And in those lower scoring games, again, one play can change things. One pick six, one special teams touchdown. So I think Tennessee has a shot. It's going to be a good one. Tennessee, Alabama there definitely put the Crimson Tide on upset alert with some of their issues that they've had this season. South Carolina, Missouri, 3:30 Eastern time on the SEC Network. Missouri's favored by 7. Coming off of another big win, Missouri has just really been impressive this year. South Carolina, it's really the same story as Arkansas. They're 2-4. Do they come out and just desperate for a win, backs against the wall, and play great, or do they give up and the season's over? That's just the question here that I don't think we know. I don't think we know what we're going to get from South Carolina. Do they have 4 more games on the schedule that they can win and get to a bowl game? I think that's going to be tough. So again, if Missouri comes out ready to go, I think Missouri's clearly the better team here. They're playing at home, but if they're kind of hung up on last week's game a little bit and South Carolina plays really, really well, you never know. We might see an upset here. How about Penn State, Ohio State? This one probably the most likely upset to happen this weekend. Noon Eastern time. Ohio State's favored by 4. I've also seen that line at 4.5. They're playing at home. But, this is going to be about the defenses. 2 really good defenses going at it. And can Ohio State make enough plays on offense? That's where they've struggled so far this season against good teams. At times, Penn State hasn't really played a team of this caliber, but they've looked really, really good. They've been consistent all year. Is Drew Aller ready to go on the road and face a really good Ohio State defense and make enough plays for them to win? I think they've got a shot. I think it's going to be a great game. Obviously, the game of the weekend, Penn State, Ohio State. Can't wait to find out what happens there. But these are the games that I think where teams should be on upset alert. We had 4 of them last week. We're going to have 4 again. And if there are 4, which 4 will it be? Give me your picks and let me know maybe if there's an upset out there that you think is going to happen that I didn't put on the video. Your thoughts on Week 8 and all the potential upsets down in the comments below.